Hello everyone, this is Jake from Fife Paranormal, and today I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit on the negative side of things, but I think it's something that's very important to cover. And today I'm going to talk about dealing with negative spirits and evil spirits on an investigation. Now, this is something that we always hope doesn't happen when you're on an investigation. No one wants to encounter negativity or, a demonic spirit, but sometimes it happens. And when it does happen, you need to be prepared with how to deal with it. Otherwise, things can go south pretty quickly. So, over the course of my investigations, I've been doing this for 10 years at this point, I have run across numerous demonic entities, negative spirits, and it's never fun. It never is. You might see Hollywood or TV shows. It's like, wow, that looks really scary. I bet it's really cool. Or, wow, look at all that great evidence we're getting. And, it's true. It does come across as good evidence because you are having intelligent communication with something that's affecting your physical environment and could also be affecting you physically. But it does come at a cost. When you're dealing with a regular spirit, John Smith died, 1843, and you're investigating his house, and, you come into contact with, John Smith, that's pretty cool, especially if you can have good, intelligent communication with him, especially for a long period of time. That's a really cool experience. And, you feel really good as it's happening, and then after it's happening, it kind of picks up your vibration. You're like, holy crap, I just had 10-minute, intelligent spirit communication with the ghost that haunts this house. That's really cool. But when you have the same type of encounters, communication with a negative spirit, it drains you. A lot of people believe that spirits use our energy as a way to manifest, and I do think that they do. But there are some entities that only feed on our energy. And this isn't true in every single case, but when you're dealing with a negative entity, especially something inhuman, whether it be demonic, interdimensional, anything like that, it is a case-by-case basis. So even though there's similarities between the different entities, they all don't act or operate the same exact way. That's what makes it really tough. When you're dealing with a regular haunt, you kind of have a good idea how to approach the situation. You can kind of formulate a game plan inside of your head. When you're dealing with a negative spirit, mainly an inhuman spirit, you do have a good idea as to what to do, what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. But when it comes to actually putting that plan into action, and say, getting halfway through the experience, when things start changing, you start picking out the personality of this inhuman entity, then it becomes tricky because you have to listen to your gut instincts, your sixth sense, whatever you want to call it. You have to listen to it, but sometimes it can lead you in the wrong direction. An example of this is if crap starts happening, which is not a technical term for it, but if stuff starts getting really serious and you start feeling, danger, like, hey, I could get hurt, or, someone in my group could get hurt, someone could get possessed, this is getting serious, it's not fun anymore. Your brain might either go into fight or flight mode. That is something that could happen. You might get angry about it and try to fight it, which is exactly what the entity wants you to do. Or you may, become submissive to it and, run away, flight. And that's also what it wants to do, because when you show that vulnerability, then it can get into your mind. And once it gets into your mind, then you're in for a really bad day, a worse day than you were already in. So sometimes your gut can lead you wrong. You might have good intentions, a demonic entity or other inhuman entity comes at you with aggression, you might want to meet that aggression with more aggression to try and, out-aggression it. Once again, not good with technical terms today, it's still pretty early, but you're playing into its game. What you do in those cases, see, these entities, they want you to lose control. They want you to give in to your emotions. They want you to give in to impulse. Whenever you're dealing with this stuff, you have to be under control before you move forward, or even if you need to move backward, it doesn't need to be a retreat or a route, it needs to be a withdrawal. There's a big difference. One is, impulsive, freaking out, spastic. The other is controlled. There is a plan behind it. It's structured. So you're still in control even though you're giving up ground in the situation. So these entities, mainly Inhuman, their goal is to break you down so that they can infiltrate inside of you and possess you, and then cause you, mental harm, bodily harm, and then basically wreak havoc in your entire life is what their goal is. So if you can stay in control of the situation, then you can, in most cases, completely eliminate the possibility for possession or even partial possession. You can even, to an extent, get rid of oppression. Now, in my cases, demonic oppression or inhuman oppression, there is a difference. It is something I have had happen to me several times. It is not a good feeling. It's a very sickly feeling, especially when it comes on really strong out of nowhere. You start feeling nauseous. Your stomach, it feels like there's a cannonball. You hear me talk about it sometimes. I feel like there's a cannonball in my chest. And that's basically, you feel like something's weighing you down. You feel a lot slower than you actually are. And in many ways, you don't feel like you're in complete control of yourself. And then something other people will say is, I can hear voices or whispering inside my head. Sometimes it sounds like their own voice. Sometimes it sounds like a different voice. I've only had that happen to me twice, and both times it has sounded like a different voice. So, that is something to watch out for. Now, going away from the inhuman side of things, there are negative spirits that aren't straight up evil or demonic. I believe that as you are in life, you are in death. Sometimes people are just crudheads. Sometimes people are jerks. They're mean. They don't like people. And, once they die, they continue that personality trait. So, something like this, you would approach it kind of similar to a regular spirit encounter, but when a negative entity like that, remember, negative entity is not demonic always. There's a difference. One is human, the other is inhuman. When you're dealing with a negative human spirit, most of the time they only have the abilities of humans and other human spirits. So the damage they can cause is somewhat limited. They can still get inside your head and they can still possess you, but their range of, motion or havoc they can cause is very limited. As where demonic might be like this, a human negative spirit might be something like this, maybe a little bit more. I guess it depends on the spirit in each case. And then also the energy that's feeding into them, not just your energy or your group's energy, but if there's like water nearby, there's a fuse box, limestone, there's so many factors that go into this, and that's what makes this very complex of an issue. But when a negative human entity shows up, it's going to introduce a lot of negativity into the air. And most of the time, you will pick up on this negativity before you actually make contact with the spirit. And then I've gotten to the point now, and this is something my dad taught me very early on, you are able, once you get to a certain point, to pick out the energies between an inhuman spirit, whether it be good or bad, and a human spirit, whether it be good or bad. There are good inhuman spirits out there. A lot of people call them elementals. Some people call them guardians. There's different kinds out there, which we'll talk about that in another video. But you do get to a point where you can kind of pick out the energy, because even though they both have negative energy, negative vibes attached to them, one feels slightly more charged than the other. I know me explaining it doesn't make much sense, but when you're on an investigation and you actually feel it, you actually experience it, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's one of those things that it's really hard to explain unless you're actually going through that situation or you've been in that situation in the moment. A good example would be when we've investigated St. Albans Sanatorium. There are places in that building where there are negative human entities. And the way we deal with those is very different from how we deal with the negative inhuman entities that dwell within that building. So, a negative human entity, like I said, you will pick up on its energy most of the time before it actually makes contact with you. Whether it be through EVP, spirit box, moving something in your physical environment, or even trying to partially possess you. The best thing to do with that is kind of like the way you should approach investigation. You should approach it with good energy, good thoughts, good intentions. And what happens is you have your good energy, meeting this negative energy, and it kind of clashes. And, most of the time, good always wins. So when you feel that negative human energy, roll up on you, do your best to flood the room, flood the area, flood everything around you, the people, the environment, the equipment, with good energy. Most of the time, this will work and will actually knock out the negative entity. Not knock out as, like boxing or anything. You don't want to, box a spirit. That wouldn't work. Maybe it might work. That might be something worth looking into. Anyway, back on topic. You want to meet negativity with positivity. That way, even if it doesn't completely get rid of the negative spirit, you have the higher ground in terms of dealing with it. Now, this same approach will sometimes work dealing with a negative inhuman entity, but you don't want to pull like a Custer and just charge into it. It's like, I've got all this positivity. Jake said positivity always wins. I'll just charge and meet this, demonic entity head on. And no, Jake did not say do that. This is a disclaimer. Jake did not say to do that. Do not charge headfirst with positive energy into demonic entity. That will not work most of the time. Sometimes you might get lucky and it'll work. Like I said, every demonic entity kind of operates, with their own little quirks. So what might work in battling one might not work against battling all the others, and kind of vice versa. So for something like that, you do want to introduce positive energy into the environment. But like I said earlier, it needs to be controlled. You need to maintain control of the situation the entire time. The second that you lose control of the situation, regardless of what entity you're dealing with, good or bad, then the investigation runs the risk of flying off the rails. A good example of this happening was recently for the Roundhouse documentary we made. If you haven't seen that, be sure to check it out on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description. But we had done research online into what to expect going into this location. Now, I didn't do my normal amount of historical research simply because I wanted to see a little bit what would happen if I went in blind. I knew most of the main points, I knew most of the main spirits, but we kind of went in there not expecting a lot to happen. But when we got there, it was insane. All hell broke loose. We ran into a few negative entities. One felt inhuman, which even the people that worked there, they were confused. They're like, we've never seen this before. This is something, we've never had anyone get this amount of activity, this short amount of time, and this kind of activity. So, we were all kind of, we didn't know what to do. And, panic starts setting in. Your mind goes crazy with, it could be this, it could be that. What's causing this? Could it be me? Could it be the environment? Could it be the equipment? And when that happens, you start to lose control. It's a snowball going down a hill. Instead of going like a hill, it's almost like a straight down cliff is what it goes down. And that's really bad. But what happened is we regained control of ourselves and then of each other, and then we were able to move on to control of the environment. Now, I left out control of the spirits because you cannot control spirits in most cases. Some mediums, some empaths, they can. That's an ability I don't have. So, make sure you have control of yourself, your group, and the environment. Once you have control of those three things, then you're back on track. Things can still fly off the rails, but you're less likely of that to happen. So basically when you're dealing with negativity, regardless of it being human or inhuman, approach it with positive energy and try to introduce more of it into the air, but be careful of what you do, because you need to know exactly whether it's an inhuman spirit or an inhuman spirit. Or if you aren't able to tell if it's human or inhuman, then proceed with caution. Don't go charging into it. Maybe make little headlong ways until you either find answers to exactly who or what you're dealing with, or you start meeting fierce resistance. Not just a little resistance, because with a little resistance, you can actually continue pushing a bit. But once you start meeting fierce resistance, that's when you stop and assess the situation and how to proceed from there. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. How do you think approaching negative spirits should be? I know a lot of people, they'll see stuff on TV, you have like ghost adventures where they just run into it. And then there's a point where, they run too far and then they try to run back to safety. And, it's TV. It's there for excitement to get, you watching more and coming back for more. But on an actual paranormal investigation, things don't always work that way. There is danger involved. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, how to approach this. I'm already anticipating a lot of comments saying do the white light exercise, which white light, goes back into feeding positivity into the environment. That's typically what I do whenever I encounter negativity, but there's a point where white light just it doesn't work all the time. And that could be because of my error. Human error does play a part in this. But leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos posted weekly. And once again, from Fife Paranormal, I'm Jake. Have a great day, everyone.